Hey YouTube, what is up? This is my Satellarknight deck profile for post Breaker of Shadows. You can see what my old deck looked like before Breaker of Shadows was released in the description below. I'll put a link to it so you can see how the deck has changed. There's a lot of good changes, I think. I'm excited to show you it, and basically Satellarknights is now anti-meta. So yeah, let's get into it. First, I main deck one Thunder King Ryo. I used to side deck it, but now it's just too good not to, because this slows pendulums down to a crawl. If they, you go first, normal summon Thunder King, and then they go normal summon Skullcrobat Joker, they can't search. So yeah, this, you can pretty much swing over most pendulum monsters that are 4-star or below. You can just keep punching, stop effects. If they're going to special summon, you could stop the special summon with Thunder King. It's too good not to main deck pretty much at this point, because it just stops pendulums. It puts the fear of God into your opponent, basically. That's the best way to think about it. It makes them second guess all their plays. I also main deck 2 Max C, because your opponent is going to special summon. That's pretty much what this entire format is about, quick special summons, so why not profit off of it? I run this instead of Upstart Goblin, just because I can set it in defense position if I'm in a really bad spot, and I can draw more than just one card off of it, and my opponent doesn't get the life points. I main deck 3 Anukulai and 2 Vega. Now, I used to have less Anukulai, less Vega. I've settled on this number permanently, I think, because 3 Anukulai is good, 2 Vega is really good. Having only 1 Vega kind of limits your multiple Trevere loop plays, and having 3 Anukulai allows you to dish cards really fast. That way, when you're in the duel, you can get your monsters into the grave and back onto the field as fast as possible. You don't have to draw into them. They're already in the graveyard. You can get them out really easily, especially if you summon Deneb at Altair, or have Anukulai on the field and then use a Sky Bridge and then change him into an Anukulai and special summon whatever you just dumped and then draw one if it's a Deneb. Really good combos with these guys, and at this number I feel like the combos are easier to pull off than before. Having less just limits you and makes you play a lot slower, and in this format that could mean you lose in less than 2 turns. And for the rest of my monsters, just 3 Altair standard and 3 Deneb. You can't really run less than any of those, so yeah, that's pretty much it. Just 3 and 3. If you want your deck to run smoothly, you need that many of both. Now, onto my spell cards. I don't really run that many anymore. I used to have a decent amount, I think, but now it's pretty much low. I run 3 Twin Twister, which is basically the best version of MST you can imagine. Discard 1 card, destroy 2 spells on the field. It's great in my opinion. I really like it, but I know a lot of people are running it too, so I have an interesting tech that I'm going to show you guys right now too that goes with Twin Twister, and that's because a lot of people are running this now instead of MSTs, and it's going to destroy 2 cards because they're going to go for 2 even if they don't have to. I'm going to say this is going to be an interesting tech you can run in a lot of decks. Starlight Road, basically, if 2 cards are going to be destroyed, this stops it and negates the destruction of those 2 cards, as long as, Starlight Road's set on the field, by the way, and then you special summon a Stardust Dragon. It's not, the best card, but stopping your opponent from destroying 2 cards, making them burn a Twin Twister, making them discard a card for Twin Twister, and then special summoning a Stardust Dragon on top of all that is a really good Tekken, in my opinion. I don't run it right now, but I have put it in occasionally, and pulling it off is really funny because people don't expect it at all. I really like this just for the fun of it, but it's not really necessary. I just thought it was an interesting tech I'd let you guys know about. I also main deck 1 Raigeki, 1 Reinforcement of the Army because it's only at 1, and then 2 Skybridge for the Anukulai plays, the Altair, and the Deneb plays. Skybridge is really useful, and yeah, that's basically the best way to put it. Skybridge is a really easy way to get into Trevere and stuff like that. Next up, basically the meat of my deck is the traps, and I have a lot of them now. So I run 3 time-space trap holes, and you'll see why eventually. I also run 1 bottomless trap hole in addition to these 3. I've been thinking about putting other hole trap cards like that in my deck, but for now, these are the 4 I've settled on. I really like running at 3 because I don't draw into it too much. I usually draw 1 or 2 within the first 2 or 3 turns, and that's not bad, and having 2 in deck is really good for what I'm about to show you guys later, but for now, let's keep on going. A new addition to my deck is 2 Quaking Mirror Force, which was originally called, I think, Burying Mirror Force, but they changed it from the Japanese translation. This card is ridiculous because it doesn't target and it pretty much can't be stopped. What it does is when your opponent attacks or declares an attack, all face-up attack position monsters are switched to face-down defense position, and their positions cannot be changed. So if your opponent has a 5-card Pendulum summon and they're attacking you with 5 cards directly, you can just flip this shit on them and set all their cards in defense position, and they really can't do anything. They can't flip it up for, you know, XYZs. They can't synchro out of it. This stops your opponent completely, in my opinion. I really, really like it. It has saved me a shit ton, and running it at 2 is great. 3 is too much, too cloggy, in my opinion. But 2 is just enough to draw it when you need it and not have it clog and get it opening hand. Then I run 3 Call of the Haunteds and 1 Oasis of Dragon Souls. I only run 1 Oasis of Dragon Souls because I really like Call of the Haunted, and I like that this is defense position, but when this is activated, it changes a monster to a worm type, which means you can't use this for 5-piece 86 plays. So the Call of the Haunteds are great for the 86 plays. This is more just to save your bacon or XYZing that doesn't make a Ragnaminia, basically, because he needs warriors, and this changes it to a worm type. You just got to be aware of that. Call of the Haunted's great though, just because Satellarknights always go to grave. Next, I main deck 2 Anti-Magische Doofsts, which is basically a, you'll see the English translation, but it's Anti-Spell Fragrance. I don't have English ones. I want to get the Prismatic Rares from the 2004 Yu-Gi-Oh game, but I can't find them yet. This just stops pendulums because, one, they have to set spell cards before they activate them, so it's ridiculous, pretty much. They can't set pendulum scales. You can't set those cards down at all, so this stops them from even putting cards in their pendulum zones to pendulum summon. They can't do that at all. Their only hope, basically, is to already have monsters in the pendulum scales, or to have a Twin Twister or something they can activate and chain on top of its activation to prevent it from going off. But this is great. It does slow us down a little bit, but we do have traps that we can set, spells that we can set. So I don't mind setting most spells for a turn if I have this face up on the field against any kind of pendulum deck. It just stops them completely. Next, I have 3 Satellarnova Alpha, just for stopping any effect or spell I don't want. If I have, you know, this on the field, and I have 1 Satellarknight, and this set as well, and they try to Twin Twister, I just flip this, tell them no, destroy my monster, but I draw a card, and Anti-Spell Fragrance still stays on the field. So this is basically to protect Anti-Spell Fragrance, protect my monsters, or if I just want to draw more and I know they're having an effect that's going to lead to a bigger play, this stops it immediately. There's also now, with the new pack, I don't have it in my deck, a generic version of this for every deck called Ultimate Providence. It's a TCG exclusive, which means Japan doesn't have it. And basically, it's Satellarknight Alpha, but you have to discard the card from your hand that is being activated. So if they activate a spell, you have to discard a spell. If they activate a trap, you have to discard a trap. And if they activate a monster effect, you discard a monster effect, and it negates it. You don't draw those, so this still is better than it, but because most people don't run Satellarknight, you can run Ultimate Providence if you like this kind of effect in your deck. And Ultimate Providence is a really cheap secret rare. It's only like $6 or $7. I'd say pick up 3 if you want to have an anti-meta deck in some way, or if you just want to protect your monster. Then I still main deck 2 Horn Heaven, because this card stops an entire pendulum summon just by getting rid of 1 monster pretty much, and that's not really bad at all. It also negates any kind of summon, including normal and tribute summons or advanced summonings if you watch the Japanese show. This is really good because if they normal summon Skullcrabat Joker, this negates it. So if I go first, have a monster on the field, they summon Skullcrabat Joker to go off and start their searches and stuff like that. Flip that, Skullcrabat Joker goes to the graveyard, not to the extra deck, because its summon is negated, and you just keep going off pretty much. So yeah, it's really good for stopping pendulums, and it can stop other stuff too, like Cosmos, but it stops more so pendulums because that seems to be what's big this format. Then I have 1 Vanity's Emptiness, 1 Solemn Warning, and from the new set, 1 Solemn Strike. Solemn Strike is pretty much Satellarknight Alpha, but for monster effects or for summoning. Solemn Warning's a little better in my opinion, but Solemn Strike is really good, and the fact that you could have 3 of these in your deck is great. I want to main deck 2 eventually. I just haven't been able to get my hand on a second one yet. I was pulling packs from my locals. I opened a Cyber Dragon Infinity, and some kid behind me traded me a Strike 4 Cyber Dragon Infinity right then and there, so I couldn't refuse it. It was a good deal. It was too good to be true, so I took it immediately, and now I have a Solemn Strike. So yeah, if you can run Solemn Strikes in your deck, I suggest it. I'd say probably put it at 2. I don't know about 3. 3 seems like it might be too much, but because you're paying a lot of life points at that point. But 1 Solemn Strike, maybe 2 Solemn Strikes, and a Solemn Warning is a good combination in my mind. Onto the extra deck, which is changing these days thanks to BOSH. I run 1 Ptolemaeus, 1 Nova, and Cyber Dragon Infinity. I had 2 at one point for about 10 seconds, traded the other one for the Strike like I just mentioned. So now I have 1 Cyber Infinity, 1 Nova, and 1 Ptolemaeus. It's really good. Ptolemaeus I like because you could chain his effect on top of himself, just like you would with an Excite Knight, where you could chain his own effect to his summoning, because once per chain you can detach three materials from this card, rank up into Nova, and then Cyber Dragon Infinity on top of the Nova. Cyber Dragon Infinity is basically Solemn Warning, where if an effect is activated, it can negate it. And basically, you can also, once per turn, if your opponent has a face-up attack position monster, just take their monster and put it underneath it, so it gains material to keep using its Solemn Warning effect, pretty much. It's basically a combination of Solemn Warning and Silent Honor Arc, and it gains attack per material too. So it's a really good play. Everyone's probably putting this in their deck, but Satellarknights are at an advantage just because of being, the actual archetype is the starter card for them. So Satellarknights have the little bit of a heads up this time around. I also run one Deltaros, one Trevere, and a second Trevere, because you need Trevere into Trevere. It's pretty much a game-winning loop if you just Trevere into Trevere, bounce, Trevere, Trevere, bounce, and you just keep going and going and going. I like Deltaros, but I don't like running more than one, but he's really good because you can pop him basically on his summon with his own effect, get a monster from your deck. So say you summon him one turn without using Altair's effect, pop him, put himself in the graveyard, special summon an Altair from the deck, and then special summon Deltaros in defense position, and Deltaros still without materials stops your opponent from being able to chain onto your summons and stuff like that. They can't activate effects at all if you're summoning a monster, which is really good. So if you can have a Deltaros on board in defense position, regardless of whether or not it has materials, it'll stop that stuff. So you can bring out Infinity really easy if you have a Deltaros in defense position, because they can't flip the warning. So that's why I like to run at least one Deltaros. I don't think I'll ever permanently get rid of him, but I won't run him more than one, I think. I also run one Daigusto Emerald to recycle my materials, one Silent Honor Arc, because even though it targets, it's still really good because it can stop my opponent from having beast stuff that breaks the game pretty much. One Heroic Champion Excalibur, just for the 4K beat stick, just in case, I need to attack over a monster for game and I know my opponent can't really stop it, so I just bring him out and then punch over them for game. One Gaga Cowboy to end games really quick. One Castel, in case there's a card in the field I really don't like and I need it to go bye-bye real quick. One Heroic Champion Ragnaminiad, because this card, if you can 5-stack it or even 4-stack it, is broken. He is unaffected by effects. If you 5-stack him, you can destroy all the cards on your opponent's side of the field. Your opponent can't special summon or normal summon until he has 3 materials. So if you 5-stack him, your opponent has to wait 2 turns before they can normal or special summon again. They can set though, so that's the only thing, but he's great because he's unaffected by pretty much everything. One Kergorgon, because nowadays, magicians, Magispectors, Odd Eyes, their decks target, and he can change the target. So if they have Dragon Pit and they want to pop one of your spells, say you have, or spell or traps, I guess, say you have an anti-spell fragrance on board and they want to pop it, you can change the target with him, which is great. So, if they target an anti-spell fragrance, just change the target to Dragon Pit. You can pop Dragon Pit with Dragon Pit's own effect, because he can, as long as it's a viable target, he can switch it to that card, which is really good, but they have to target specifically one card exactly. He can even change Kieran's target to Kieran, so that's really good in my mind. I also run one Bujin Tsukiyomi because this card is great to go into first turn, where you can, set 3, special summon, have 2 cards on the field, and then special summon him, detach 1, discard 1 card from your hand and draw 2, and then you go +2 on 1 turn, and you would basically have 8 cards at your bidding. Is really good. If you have an Altair in hand, you ditch the Altair, draw, and you have 4 cards that bring Altair back from the grave, so you're more than likely going to draw at least one of them if you use his effect twice. And the last card I run in my extra deck is a Traptrix Rafflesia. This card is broken, and it is winning me so many games, it's ridiculous. Traptrix Rafflesia, if you don't know, when it has materials, it is unaffected by traps, so that's great. If you have other Traptrix cards, it protects them, they can't be affected by anything, but this one can. And you can ditch trap cards from your deck, trap hole cards specifically, and it gains their effects. So it's broken. You can have this set in defense position, 2500 defense. Kind of tough for actually pendulum monsters to get over. Your opponent's gonna pendulum summon, activate Traptrix Rafflesia's effect, detach 1, ditch a time space trap hole from your deck, which is why I run 3. So just in case I draw one, I know I have 2 in the deck. You can detach a card, just name the trap, take it out of your deck, put it in the graveyard. This gains its effect, and you can activate that effect immediately. So it's ridiculous because it can stop entire pendulum summons, it can stop special summons, you can use it to send a bottomless trap hole, just any monster with 1500 or more attack, it can stop Denko Sekkas. It's great. And another card, let's go into the extra deck, that I also run that this card can ditch, which is great, is 2 Chaos Trap Holes. This is also a viable target for Traptrix Rafflesia, and it stops the Denko Sekkas pretty much and it's really good because our deck is mostly trapped, so you need to stop Denko Seka if you can. It's also really good because it stops Cosmos, and it stops a lot of other plays too. So running 2 of these isn't bad in my mind. It's also great in the mirror match because you could flip shit and just fuck your opponent over. I also run 3 Imperial Iron Wall. Came in handy against Cosmos, came in handy against Psyframes. So I keep it at 3, although I might drop it down to 2 eventually. For now, for this format, I'm still going to keep it at 3. I don't see a reason not to. I keep knocking the Spellground up more and more. By the way, this is my new Spellground. This is the Lefty Edition that they just released, which is really, really cool. So I'm glad they kind of released the Lefty Edition because I'm left-handed. I also side deck 2 Pendulum Storm because I love to destroy my opponent's Pendulum shit, and this card is just great for it. It's basically Twin Twister, but Pendulum specific, so you destroy as many cards as possible in the Pendulum zone, so you can destroy both your opponent's scales, and then you get to destroy a card that's in their back row. I've drawn this, used it against my opponent when they had Pendulum Scale set and a Royal Decree, and it just, destroys their scales and the Royal Decree, and then I can activate my traps again. It's great. The only thing is, I think you do need to destroy Pendulum Scales to use this effect, to destroy back row. So it's MST, but you have to destroy Pendulum Scales to use its effect, and it's not quick play. That's the only thing. That's why I side deck it instead of main decking it. I also run the 3rd Anti-Spell Fragrance, just because there's so much Pendulum shit these days. Stygian Dirge for pretty much any Pendulum stuff too, because I know Odd Eyes decks like to Synchro or XYZ, and this just stops that. Faria Winds is just to destroy Royal Decree or something like that. Chain this on top of Royal Decree, it'll destroy it. Destroy Pendulum Scales, stuff like that. Just in general, I love to get rid of my opponent's back row, so that's why my side deck is pretty much all that. I also side deck 2 Cyber Dragons and the Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon just to stop Cosmos, because there's still a lot of Cosmo players in my locals, and this just helps stop it. And that's it for this video, guys. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions or suggestions, don't forget to let me know in the comments down below. I love to read the comments, guys. If you have anything you want to tell me at all, feel free to leave a comment and I'll read it and reply to you as soon as I can. If you want to follow me on Twitter at Schwabs to see when I post videos, go for it. The link is in the description, or you can like my Facebook page, facebook.com/TheVinnyDShow. The link to that's in the description below. Thank you guys again for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. If you want more content like this, don't forget to click subscribe because it's free, it's fun, and I'll see you guys in the next one.